Hi guys and girls, welcome back. Before we begin, let's just take some deep breaths because this video is going to be a little heavy. Not too much, a little. I actually feel great today because we actually celebrated Juneteenth at my workplace, at the hospital, and it was a really nice program actually. I actually got put on the spot in the program because what I'm wearing, this very elegant skirt that you guys actually saw. I wore this last year when I visited my hometown of Jacksonville, Florida. And when I wore it differently though. I didn't wear it like on my waistline. I actually wore it as a dress. So I have the model for you guys because I actually like the way it fits this way. I should do a photo shoot, huh? I do. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I got called out. I got put on the spot because the host of the program where I work, she was like, "Oh, who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Dr. Danielle Leach." And she's like, "Oh, you have a beautiful dress. Could you tell us like what inspired your clothing?" And I got up there. She wanted me to come up out of my seat in front of everyone and talk about my inspiration for why I'm wearing this. And of course, I've already told this story before, but back when I was in Los Angeles working on my PhD, my doctoral degree in clinical psychology, I was inspired by this TED Talk video that my psychologist, who I was seeing at the time, asked me to watch. She gave me the assignment for homework. So I went home and watched it, and I was so moved by it. Essentially, the TED Talk was saying that what we wear is a reflection of who we are, right? So it's important that if we want to communicate to the world who we are, we should do that in how we dress and what we wear. Just simple, right? Very basic, but it spoke volumes to me. And ever since I watched that video, it just resonated. And yeah, I got my first dashiki when I was living in Los Angeles, and I felt different. Like, the world interacts with you differently based on how you dress. And granted, prior to that, I just had been a plain Jane wearing jeans and sweatpants and hoodies and complete 360, you guys. So, yes, I take pride in how I dress and what I wear. But yeah, it was a really nice program, Juneteenth celebration. Funny enough, my cycle just came on today too. I know this might be TMI for some of the men folk watching, but for me, everything is spiritual. So, and I asked them to put extra ginger in here, and I don't taste not one lick of ginger. What is it? I'm gonna start doing my own juices, y'all. They slacking. But like, I'm a very spiritual person, so how I experience the world and things that happen in my world, in my body, in my environment, says a lot. And so the fact that my cycle came on the same day as the Juneteenth celebration, I think it was the Juneteenth celebration that triggered my cycle to come on. But yeah, so I say that because I'm doing this video. I could have postponed it, but I felt the urge to do it today, as I have been getting inundated with a lot of comments from people who watched my video that I made in response to Dr. Umar Johnson's video on possibly canceling the second annual FDMG festival in Delaware. But I don't think it's going to happen. I've already said that, like, it's not going to happen. But yeah, I was going to wait, but I said, I feel like I need to do this today. I feel like I need to do that. And I made that decision before my period came on, you guys. Before I was on my way to work, actually. And then I made that decision that I was going to go ahead and make this video today. And then, boom. So if you guys see me, like I'm having some cramps, that's what I'm doing. I'm having cramps, right? I'm going to get through this. But where do I begin? I'm about to go ahead and start reading these comments. I'm going to read the comments and I'll be addressing the comments here in this video. Yeah, we'll start there. I was actually going to say something before I started to read the comments, but no, we're going to go ahead and just jump right on in. We're going to go ahead and jump right on in. I know I freaking charged this thing, okay? I know I did. I think it died before I charged it, so I have to turn it back on. I was so looking forward to this ginger pop in here. And this drink. I barely even taste it. It tastes more of the orange and the carrot than the ginger. And I have to tell them about this. Like, yo, how can y'all, come on, man. The first one I got was fire. Y'all gotta come with it. Don't come at all. Come with it or don't come at all. Yes, honey, yes. The thing with me though, like I embrace pain. So yes, even though I'm cramping, it feels good. It's just, it feels divine. Alright. Alright, I'm like, where do I start? Okay. Let me pull up my YouTube channel. And this video here.
Shop store-wide and online for Michael's lowest prices of the season. Plus 10% rewards on your entire purchase.
It's the ad on my video. You guys can see I like Michael's, but that's no surprise because I paint. Alright. Now, let me make sure all of the comments are loaded. Should I go by newest first? I just find it interesting, like, people's perspective and people's response. Now, I titled this video that I'm responding, I'm addressing the comments left by his haters and his trolls. Granted, all of these comments I wouldn't say necessarily come from hate, right? And I'm going to actually do a breakdown. I'm going to analyze every single comment that was left, right? So the comments, they are there in the video and they're still coming in. I know it's going to be a lot more. This is just the beginning. And I feel like I should give like a prelude, like an introduction for the starters, like for people who are just coming on my channel who don't know me, right? Who've never seen any of my videos. I'll just say this, that of course I support Dr. Umar Johnson. I support his mission. I support what he stands for and what he's working towards for so many different reasons, right? Like I feel like it should go without saying, but just to set the context for this video. First and foremost, it's clear why I support, it should be clear why I support him, right? Like, I'm black, okay? Number one, I'm black. Aside from that, black people, we have endured so much, right? So it's not so much, I think people lose focus and they put their focus on the messenger, right? As opposed to what the message is, right? And the point behind the message, where the message is stemming from. I resonate with his message, with his premise, with his belief. Because I carry the same belief, right? It's not that, oh, you know, you got to be careful not to be so swayed by this man. When I read comments like that, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but when I read things like that, it kind of, in a way, throws me off a bit, right? And I understand that we all come from different backgrounds, right? We have different perspectives. I'm going to just read this post that I made on my page on Facebook. Give me a second, because I just want to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. Because some people just don't get it. They just, you know, we're cut from different cloths, right? Not all skin folk are kinfolk. Let me mute this. But I want to read you guys this meme that I created. Hold on. And honestly, I don't know when I created it. Maybe last year sometime. Let's see. I'll read you guys. Where are you, meme? Where are you? Ooh. Alright, here it is. And for you guys who are watching this on YouTube, right, because I record my videos live on Facebook. For you guys who are watching this on YouTube, you can come over to Facebook. I think I posted this meme actually on my YouTube page, but essentially it says, it's a picture of my mom and my father. Beautiful couple, by the way, right? And actually look just like both my parents, my dad and my mom together, okay? But it says, my dad was born in 1941. My mom was born in 1953. The Civil Rights Movement began in 1954. Jim Crow laws were still in full effect. Let that sink in. I don't think people get it. Some of us just come from an era where we have no choice, right? We have that spirit of revolution planted deep within our DNA. We're born out of this, right? So we're called to do certain things. We're born into a family that there's no choice, right? We're born from a certain bloodline where there is no choice but to have our eyes woke, right? I know some people were born to certain families, and within certain, you know, family households or dynamics, like, they see the world through a different lens, right? Some people believe that there's no such thing as racism, right? Or there's no such thing as discrimination. And what is race? They don't see race, right? For me, race was very much salient. And it didn't become salient just when I started school. It was very much salient in my household, right? I was introduced to what the world truly is through my mother and my father. But my mom, she just rang that bell ever so loud. She made it clear, and actually put this quote in my dissertation, but my chair asked me to take it out. And by the way, my chair was a white woman. So my dissertation that's published is actually kind of watered down. But she had me take out this line that I said. I quoted my mom in the dissertation, in one of the drafts of my dissertation, where I said that my mom used to always say, we live in a white man's world. Get used to it. By the way, my dissertation is on black identity, acculturation, and implicit racial bias. But my mom made it very clear. She put it in my face. There's no way that I could have not seen it, right? It's there. So my eyes been open. And then just the spirit that lives in my mom, you just have to know my mom just to know. And the spirit lives in my dad. It's just there. That same spirit is in me, right? So there's no way around it. I don't see how black people can live in a world where we have been racially oppressed for so long. As if you don't feel it, right? I know that some of y'all leveling up, you getting money, so you may feel like, oh, that don't really affect me, right? I got money, I got a job. Even though I am high SES, right? I live in Upper East Side, Manhattan. I have a doctoral degree. That still don't take away from what I see and what I experience as a black woman living here in America. So considering the contextual background, right? Considering this context in which we live in, it's like, how can you not resonate with the message, right? And the man behind the message. How can you not see that? So that's what I resonate with, right? Clearly, also, we share in the same profession. He's a clinical psychologist and so am I. I think that's very attractive. That's very admirable to see a black man as a clinical psychologist in America, considering. I don't think people know the statistics. If you have to really like break it down and spell out the reality of the situation in which we're living in. So out of all the psychologists here in America, only 4% are black. 70% of those are women. I don't think people they don't see it. Essentially, there is a shortage of black male psychologists, just like there's a shortage of black male teachers. This is a systemic issue. And the fact that he has answered the call, which I've said this before, he has no choice, right? Even if he wanted to throw in the white flag and give it up, he has no choice. He has to persist. He has to continue. He has been called. He has been chosen. So there's just no way around it. And, you know, y'all just have to deal with it. That's just what it is. But let's just go ahead and just jump right on in here, right? So, I will read the oldest to the newest. Let's go that way. Let's start with the oldest comment. So this person says, young lady, and by the way, when did I make this video? That's another thing. YouTube used to show the date. Apparently, they're not doing it from this screen here. From the computer, maybe by phone, but they would show the date. I think it was 2 days ago. Anyway, this person says, young lady, this is just a pattern of his that he reenacts when it's time to ask for money. He could possibly have been sabotaged, but he tries to undertake all of these things himself. He also owes a lot of taxes to the state of Delaware, and that sometimes is used against businesses trying to do things. So in the video, basically, I was responding to the video that he made. He was discouraged, disappointed. He was let down, and he almost lost hope. He didn't lose hope, but he felt defeated in a sense that he was told by the coordinator of who works for the city, right, who he has to get the permit through, that another entity had applied for a permit to occupy those streets where he wants to host the festival for FDMG on September 10th this year, that someone else basically had submitted an application. Now, she did not say the person got approved, but she had explored with him the idea of maybe changing his date, which he is very inflexible and rigid to, right? So with that, he was feeling a certain kind of way. And so this person is saying that he's highlighting that he also owes a lot of taxes to the state of Delaware, which I already mentioned that in my video. So he's kind of pretty much restating what I said. But he put his interpretation on it to say that this is just another Dr. Umar Johnson scam rodeo, right? Saying that it's an enactment. He's putting on this big show, this to-do, this issue at hand, right? Almost like a dramatization to say that he is acting in order to gain people's attention so that he can solicit for donations. And so this person, like, I think his stream of consciousness is not like coherent. He's just kind of throwing out random shit, right? Right? He first of all, he throws out an assumption or his own interpretation, which really has no basis to it because he's not really backing up by anything, right? He's not backed up by examples. He's just saying, okay, Dr. Umar Johnson is just doing this because he wants to get money. It's his time for him to get, he has a pattern of doing this to get money, right? But I think it would be more helpful if this person who left this comment, and if you're watching this, to give examples. Like you can say, for example, on this day, right, November 1st, 2009, he said this, and the other, right? And then this happened. And then these are the other dates, right? So this is a pattern. But you're just saying, okay, this is a pattern. He asked for money. And yes, he's asked, a lot of people ask for money, all right? In a pattern, you have to be consistent if you're going to do something. He has a mission that he set out to achieve. So it makes sense that, yes, he's asking for money. He's soliciting for donations. He says he owes a lot of taxes. I feel like I'm having deja vu. I have that a lot, yo. And some people say, you're having deja vu. It's an indication that you're in the right place at the right time, that you're right where you're supposed to be. That could be true, but I look at it more so that deja vu is me experiencing what I've already experienced. When I have deja vu, I'm experiencing something that I've already experienced. Like, I've been here in this position, reading this comment. I've been here. It goes to show you that time doesn't exist. It's an illusion. And we live in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. All right. That might be a little bit too deep for some of y'all. That's a formula for a consistent failure. Don't let his preaching confuse the facts. Now, that's his hypothesis, right? Which he's not alone. A lot of people have this theory, this belief, this hypothesis that Dr. Umar Johnson is scamming. You're like, don't believe the hype. He's just doing it as a scam, right? And on one hand, I can see how people would think that, considering, let's say if you order furniture from China and you ordered it January 2022 and you still haven't got the damn furniture, at some point you might think that I done got scammed because I ordered this shit and it's been 6 months, half a year damn near, and it still hasn't got here, right? Not only that, the company told me it's going to arrive by February, the end of February. But I still haven't got this furniture that I ordered from China back in January. And we're now in June, approaching July. So a person would go to think like, okay, I got scammed. They took my money. They told me that they were going to send this furniture. They have a whole website set up with all of these different furniture items here. Now, I went on there and selected what I wanted. It came up to $3,500. I paid the fee, but I still do not have the furniture, right? He told me I would get it by the end of February. So that's, I think, how some people are looking at this, because yes, he has set dates to say, we're going to open the school by this date. The date came still no school. We're going to open the school by this date. Date came, still no school. We're going to open the school by this date. That date came, still no school, right? Like, the goalpost keeps moving. But yet he's still asking for donations for the school. So that can make one skeptical. Like, what the hell is going on? For me, given that I understand his motivation for why he wants to open a school, right? Like, I get it. I mean, it's necessary. We definitely need more African-centered schools. I'm with it. Hell, if I can open one, I would, right? I know it takes a lot of work, though. And it takes a team of people standing with you. And you have to build that team of people. You can't just go out and randomly ask for people to come out and help. Like, it takes a bit of, more delicate, effortful action to invest in nurturing healthy relationships with people. Right? That takes time. Maybe he already knows some people, but to get people on board to really be invested in this, you can't do this alone. You just can't. This calling, right? This mission cannot be done just by one man. So I think that's where his character flaw comes in, because he's King Kong and he's, he has a tendency to inflate himself and his ego to make himself feel good. And granted, I think we all should do that from time to time. But at the same time, we should all be self-aware to see how we're overdoing it, to the extent that it can be causing harm to ourselves, and not only ourselves, but those people who we directly and indirectly impact. So it's always important to be self-aware of oneself and one's actions and how that impacts other people. And I think that's that's his biggest character flaw, because his ego is getting more inflated and more inflated and more inflated. And people may wonder why. Because he's under attack too, I think, at the same time, right? A person can inherently have narcissistic traits, right? Just in and of themselves, right? Independent of any attacks and all of this. But I think in being attacked by people, right? You're setting out to embark on this freaking immeasurable mission that is going to create systemic change for black people across America. And you're passionate about this. Like, this is your baby, right? You care about people. You initially set out to embark upon this calling that you want to give back to the black community, right? You're doing this for black people, but the very people that you're doing it for are not trusting of you, right? It's like they're saying they don't need you, essentially, right? They're rejecting you. They're like, who is this man? And what is this rhetoric that he's spewing, right? About being all black everything. They want integration. Because there are different types of black people. There are us who understand, overstand, and we feel it, we live it, to know that we need our own. And we got to build our own. That's just in us. That's in our DNA. And then there are people who are like, nope, we need to integrate. Right? And they're all lives matter. That's All Lives Matter committee, right? And so to try to win those people over or convince them, it's just like, no, let people going to have their own mind made up anyway. They have their own decisions, right? But you feel rejected by those people when a person who esteems himself a certain way feel rejected. That's like, that's like a narcissistic injury, as they call it, right? And that deflates a person's ego, makes them feel a little bit smaller. So what they have to kind of inflate themselves even more and boost themselves up even more. So I think this dynamic this cause and effect that's happening between Umar Johnson and his haters, so to speak. It's like it's a marriage, and they don't see how they play a role in his character and who he is. If you constantly set out on a campaign to tear him down, and that the more people hate, like the bigger his name grows because people gravitate to drama. That, right? That more people are going to latch on to this whole gravy train of people hating on him. But you're feeding into that too. You continue to feed into that, right? So it's like a catch-22. On one hand, you have these opposing views with respect to him and what he's doing, and then you're spewing out negativity. And in the same vein, what you're doing is also magnifying him and blowing him up even more. So you just have to look at the role that you play. And I don't think that haters or trolls or whatever, I don't think they get that they are also being used as pawns. Right? Like, you have to be, if you're self-aware, then you'll see, okay, well, what's my role in this? Right? Where do I sit at the table? Where do I fall with respect to all of this? Right? Like, you are a part of his story. You are sitting at his table. You have a seat at his show, essentially. All right, moving along. He says, so at the end of the first comment, he says, don't let his preaching confuse the facts. All right. I think this video would be much different if I wasn't menstruating. Sorry, you guys. Sorry, this is day one. You guys know how that is. The cramps. I don't have like terrible cramps, but I feel it. I allow myself to feel everything in my body. So, yeah, I feel it. I feel like cramping my stomach and my back a little bit. I just felt it. All right. So he says, next person says, I love your intelligence, bless. All right. Thank you. All right. Next person says, and the crazy thing, yo, you can tell trolls because the title, the name of their avatar, of their profile. All right, this next comment is made by Lucy Goosey. Like, these are Dr. Umar Johnson's biggest supporters, to be honest. All right, he says, it's unbelievable how you delusional females get hooked on Umar's BS. I didn't even see that this comment was made. It's people like you who let frauds in our communities prosper. What? Umar has done nothing but con our people for years with his race hustling nonsense. So that's left by, oh wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. This got to be period brain right now. Okay, so the third comment was left by Lucy Goosey, and it reads, Umar's own incompetence is the cause of his failures. He's been taking the black community for a ride for years. Although he preaches a very good message, it's undoubtedly the wrong messenger. Now, I think, like I said, he started out with good intentions. I think over time, because it's not easy, and I think anybody could have easily fell into that trap. Not being careful, and not being calculated. And I think everything that happens is divine. It's supposed to happen. Time will definitely tell, but the way things are going is not the direction that it's going in, like with respect to Dr. Umar Johnson, school, his whole mission. It doesn't look well, right? I feel like he's seeking himself deeper and deeper, and like it's going down. It's going downhill. It's not looking good. And I mentioned this. This is not new information. I mentioned this in my last video that I made that we're reading the comments from, and I mentioned this before in several other videos. Like, I pointed out his character flaws. I did a whole psychoanalysis on him with respect to his baby mamas and that whole situation, which I found it interesting that he intentionally avoided answering that question. So he just did a recent fundraiser on his IG where he had people send donations to his Cash App and his PayPal in exchange for him answering a question. So the minimum donation that he was willing to take was $10 to answer questions. And he said you can ask any question, doesn't matter, personal, related to FDNG, whatever question you want to ask, just send $10 and I'll answer the question. So somebody comes around and asks a question about why he didn't marry his baby mamas. And granted, he has two, right? Two different baby mamas that we know of, I guess. With two girls. And he avoided the question. The guy sent the money, but he did not answer the question. He was like, oh, you got to come better with that. You got to come at least, I think he said, $50 for me to answer the question. Because that's my personal business. You treading on personal territory. And I'm just like, but at the beginning of the video, he said, but you see how he changed it. So, and looking, because I pay close attention to people. Clearly, this is what I do for a living. And in that observation, it was like a microcosm of what people are complaining about with respect to him. How he is taking people's money. He's saying one thing and promising one thing, but does something else. And it's just like, bingo, it actually happened live. And if you pay attention, you will see it. Like, prime example, this is in a short span of time, in the matter of doing one live video. I think the video, it was 2 parts, 2 separate videos. Each video, I think, was like 1 hour on Instagram. But he essentially, he didn't follow through. I don't think he ever answered the question. I think I actually intentionally went and watched the second video to see if he was going to answer the question. I don't think he ever answered the person's question. And I'm like, damn. I was actually wanting him to provide an answer to that. But he couldn't answer the question. Now, he's actually addressed that issue before to say, of course, he gives his perspective, mainly projecting blame onto his baby mamas and not taking not one responsibility. But he the way he took responsibility was he framed it in a way as if he made a bad decision in getting them pregnant and saying that he was young. No. How does this go with his stance that he been woke, right? Maybe he been woke but not mature, but he's like, I've been woke since I was in 3rd grade. I knew this is what I was supposed to do, I didn't have to go through racial oppression or be denied a job, for example, or be discriminated against or mistreated by white people in order for me to wake up, as he says, as like a lot of black people do, right? He's like, no, this has already been in me. And I'm like, okay, if it's been in you, if you've been woke, then to make that poor of a decision in, I don't know how old was he, in 20s, right? Had to be like mid-20s. I think he's like, mid-40s, approaching 50. And he has a grown daughter. And I think the other one is pushing grown. So it's like, I don't know. Something ain't mathing in terms of what he's claiming, right? If you're claiming that you've been woke, to be woke is to be conscious, and to be conscious is to definitely be responsible. Individually responsible, and responsible in terms of thinking about the collective conscience and thinking about your community as a collective and your own actions, how that impacts the black community, on a socio-political level. To have children by 2 different women and to not be married to not one of them, that says something about who you are, your character. And I know shit happens, but like, all right, well, let's keep going. But he says that he's been taking the black community for a ride for years. I mean, on a ride for years. And that's unfortunate. Like I said, it's not looking good. Like, unless there is some kind of miraculous thing happening, right? Where something magical has to happen, yo. Like, for him to, like, really like, wake up and see that what he's been doing is not really working. It's working in the sense that he's getting donations, but at some point, you know, if you're not utilizing the money and it's not manifesting to what you say that you're collecting donations for, then that's going to kind of come back to bite you on the butt. It's not going to be good. You know? It's just like almost a matter of time because, you know, people have donated a lot of money, right? And granted, yes, he purchased the property, but it's poor, like, it's poor management, it's poor decision making, it's poor planning, you know, and we know it takes a lot of time, but even, like, he doesn't have a plan, it's not written out, you know, he's all over the place, right? And he did mention that he has ADHD, so his attention is just, like, on 1,001 different things. The whole thing about the shockumentary, he actually said that, you know, he was promoting that back a couple years ago, right? And it's funny because, you know, granted, like I said, I'm a supporter of his, and so I actually manage a fan page for him, right? And you know, to help promote the mission and all of that. But with that, I shared, you know, his campaign, the fact that he was raising money to produce this shockumentary. The shockumentary is to basically raise the curtain on what's happening with the school to prison pipeline. This was like several years ago that he was, you know, initiating this campaign to get this documentary produced. And so, you know how like on Facebook, they send you your memories, right? And remind you of different, you know, events and posts that you made. And so I got that, and I saw that. I'm just like, okay, interesting. And so I shared it again. Now, what I shared was essentially one of his posts to the fan page. And I think he saw it. He had to, right? To the extent where he started to talk about the shockumentary again. Now, before I had shared it, and this was just a couple days ago, before I had shared it, he hadn't mentioned anything. Like, it had been sleeping. So when I shared it, I say, I wonder what's going on with this. Like, is it still going to happen? And someone laughed. I noticed that someone laughed as a reaction to my post that I shared of his about the shockumentary. And so then from there, he started to ask for donations and started to talk about it. And he had this whole, you know, fundraiser on his IG live the other day. And it's just like, come on, yo. Like, I know that it takes a while, but if he just gotta focus and just take a look honestly at himself. I just think that's what it takes. And I don't think it's nothing major. It's not like a major change has to happen in him. He got it. Like, he is the shit. Right? He got the and I already said this. I like his delivery. Like, he's a good communicator, good orator and all of that. He's educated, he's wise. He got the passion. He got it all. But it's just one little thing that has to be tweaked, you know, so that it can be more balanced and more organized to fulfill those things that he's starting. Because if you're just starting all these projects and not finishing them, that's problematic. You know, your energy is just spread out all over the place, right? And that can be good for many different things. You know, a lot of artists have that issue, so to speak, where they start a lot of shit and they just don't, they're not able to finish. They're kind of manic in that sense, right? That's actually, you know, one of the criteria for bipolar, you know, manic depressive. disorder. In the manic episode, they have this burst of energy, and it manifests itself by a person just launching all this shit. And a lot of people, successful people, have spoken out to say that yes, they suffer from manic depressive disorder or bipolar. And when they have their manic episode, they actually are very productive, right? But this about being self-aware, because you know that there's gonna come where, you know, that mania, all that energy, that burst of energy will eventually die down. And then what happens when it dies down? You don't have that you don't have the energy, you don't have that motivation. So you're not able to complete those projects that you started, right? But then when the mania comes, you go and start other things. It's just like, it's a cycle. You keep cycling. And that's not good. So it's like, how can you control that? And I've sat back and watched him, you know, from the time that I've been following him. Because like I said, I didn't know Dr. Umar Johnson. Like, I just actually started to learn about who he is. And I learned about him through my ex-partner back in 2014. And we actually sat down and watched the Hidden Colors series as our first date. And then from there, you know, I kind of got hip to Dr. Umar Johnson's, you know, videos and things like that. But I didn't really know who he was. And so from what I've seen and, you know, me following him and watching him, like he set out with a lot of ambitious projects and ideas, but very few have actually manifested. And that's something that's just part of entrepreneurship too. You know, you have to, especially on social media, when it comes to social entrepreneurship, some things you always, you know, get this burst of ideas, right? Especially as a creative. However, they may not all manifest, you know, and people may not always latch on to everything that you're putting out. So I think you're just rolling with what people are biting with, and they're biting the school because, you know, a lot of parents are sick and tired of what their children are going through in the school system, which Dr. Umar Johnson, he highlights very eloquently in his speeches, his lectures, and in his book, The Psychoacademic Holocaust. And he talks about, you know, black boys especially being targeted by their teachers and singled out, you know, and labeled with ADHD just because, you know, they have trouble focusing. And oftentimes they're overlooked in the class. And the research actually backs this up too, because research has shown that teachers really don't make eye contact as much with the black children, you know, compared to white children. And they don't make much eye contact with black boys as they would black girls. And if they are paying attention to black boys, it's to complain about what they're doing wrong, as opposed to emphasizing things that they're doing well. So this is an issue, and I think it's worth noting when it comes to problematic behaviors in the classroom, and behaviors in general in children in school, is to look at the social context. You can't look at behavior like in this vacuum and just say, okay, something is wrong with this individual. What is the context and that's, you know, happening around that individual, right? What are the interpersonal factors at play? And so that's Dr. Umar Johnson's specialty right there. I'll let him take that on. But, you know, I think there's a lot of issues, multi-layer issues that impact, you know, black children, you know, us as black men and women, us as a community, you know. And I think that we have to take this issue seriously and not get caught up in our feelings when it comes to us solving, you know, the problems, or people rising to the plate to say that they have been called to address certain issues, right, and fix certain problems. But at the same time, I see where you guys are coming from, because it's like, okay, somebody has to check what is not working, right? There have to be internal checks happening within our community. It's difficult, I think, for, yes, the white man to check us, because if that happens, then, you know, they're deemed or looked at as, oh, they're being racist, right? So If we see something wrong happen in our community, we have to step up to the plate and do it, I would say, in a loving manner. But yes, Dr. Umar Johnson, he's definitely a beast. He's definitely a beast, and he's very resistant. And I can say this from my conversation I had with his father, that he definitely is a splitting image of his father. So even though Jamal Johnson tried to make it seem like, oh, you know, he disowned his son, or that's that's Umar, that's not what I taught him. It ain't about what you teach him. It's about what a child inherits, right, from the DNA of their parents. And having that conversation, when I talked with Jamal Johnson, and it was a lengthy conversation we had over the phone back when I was living in LA, like the flavor, it felt like I was like talking to Dr. Umar Johnson, talking to his father. Like they got the same personality. You know? It may not show because, you know, Jamal Johnson, you know, he didn't kind of, in a sense, been kind of tapered and molded by the United States Marine Corps. I believe that's the part of the service that he was in. So, but it's still in him. You can tell, like when he's just kind of, you know, kick back, you know, chilling and not trying to wear this facade of how he want white people in society or society to perceive him. He a totally different character. Like he's pretty much Dr. Umar Johnson unmasked. And I felt that flavor. It's just like it's about him. Nothing else matters. It's very much self-centered, only about his perspective. No other perspective outside of his is important. And so I'm like, I see where Dr. Umar Johnson get it from. He get it from his daddy, yo. But anyway, all right. And you know, I think that approach or that kind of personality could be helpful in certain environments, right? It's not to say nothing is all good, nothing is all bad. That can be useful in certain environments, but no, when you're interacting with people, you're doing business, you know, you are leading a cause, you got to be flexible, you know, and consider other people's perspective. Yes, still be assertive, and I like his alpha male energy. That is definitely needed, but it can only get you so far. It takes balance. All right, going to the next one. Dr. Umar Johnson's chair. That's the name of the person or the avatar that left this next comment. I'm going to read. It says, it's unbelievable how you delusional females get hooked on Umar's BS. It's people like you who let frauds in our communities prosper. Umar has done nothing but con our people for years with his race hustle nonsense. And you can tell that person is obviously not balanced in their thinking, because nothing is all good and nothing is all bad, right? So for this person to say that Dr. Umar Johnson has done nothing, that is absolutely incorrect. Now, you may feel very strongly about him and the things that you feel he has not done right, and that's worth noting. But I think if you want to be heard, which is makes it easy for Dr. Umar Johnson to dismiss the haters or trolls, because you're not coming with a balanced perspective. I personally, I'm not going to listen to some bullshit. Somebody come at me with complete negative energy, you know, and what they may be saying may have an inkling of truth in it, right? But if it's presented in a way where you just make completely negative, a person is not going to be receptive to that, right? So if you have a perspective that you think is worth listening to, and you want to bring about change, because you see something is wrong, you see that there's a fire happening in the building, right? You see it. If you want to help put that fire out, like, you have to come with the right tools, come with the right approach. And a lot of people's approach to what's happening with Umar Johnson is not effective, essentially. It's just not. Aside from Umar Johnson, it's just not effective in general in working with people. Like, to come with completely attacking him, all that's going to do, like, it's just going to be a back and forth, right? Like, you attack him, you speak negativity about him, he's like, all right, fuck y'all, right? And dismiss. He's not going to take in what you're saying. However, if you come with a balanced perspective to speak on things that, yes, he is doing well, a person is more likely to listen because they like to hear positive feedback. Who doesn't? And then you slip in, okay, this is some things that you should improve on. Or, it's not to try to tell a person how to do their work, but it's off to offer a suggestion. To say that he is a complete fraud, I don't have enough information or evidence, so to speak, to say that. But I can see how people can see it that way because, like the example I gave earlier with, let's say, ordering, something from China or ordering furniture, and you've been waiting on it hasn't come, then yeah, you're left to believe that this motherfucker took my damn money, So this person is scamming me out of my money, and you don't want other people to go through what you went through. So yeah, I just think, I look at it this way. I'm careful when it comes to how I spend my money and how I make donations, right? So I know that people have good intentions and they want to help, but even before I heard rumors about that Umar just being a scammer, like, I'm calculated, I don't know about y'all, but I'm like, even though I may have money, I don't be just sitting up here just, here you go. Even like with the homeless show, out on the streets, like, I don't believe in just giving people my hard-earned money. I don't do that. Even homeless people, right? If I'm going to donate, I have to be sure and clear that what I'm donating to, like, I can see the fruit of that, right? If you're going to make a purchase, you got to make sure that this is a good purchase, that you're purchasing something that you're going to feel proud and not regretful about your purchase. How can you ensure that? If you're just going out there and you taking a chance, it's like, okay, well, you took a chance, right? But nah, shit got to be laid out for me. That's just how I am, irrespective of this situation, right? That's just who I am in general. So, even when it came to Tariq Nasheed's campaign, when I think he did that, what year was that? 2021? His campaign to raise, I think, $1 million to build the Hidden History Museum. Now, I helped promote it. Don't get me wrong, I help promote, but as far as putting money, I think people got to be careful, because you just got to be careful. You got to know where your money is going and know that the hands that it's going in, that they are responsible. And I have to admit that, Dr. Umar Johnson, mistakes happen, right? People can go out and set an intention to build a school or to launch an event or do this and do that, but you have, like, that's one thing you can't play with, black people's money. And I'm saying this as a business owner myself. You cannot fuck with black people's money. Alright, white people might let that shit slide, be like, oh, okay, charge to the game, you know what I'm saying? And they got more where that came from. But for black people, we work so hard, right? And when we earn money, it's different when we earn money than when a white person. $1 earned for a black person compared to $1 earned for a black person is two different things. Considering, we know the racial disparities when it comes to economics for black people. We know how hard it is for us to get our hands on $1, right? So when we do, it's just like, you cannot take that shit from us, because you're fucking with a person's survival. We barely got it, right? We barely can get our hands on it. So when we get our hands on it, why would you take that away? Right? And continue to do it and not be mindful of it. Yeah, people make mistakes and things sometimes, and more oftentimes than not, don't go as planned. Right? So you can have a plan. Okay, I'm going to go and buy this building, and then somebody else buys it before you do, or the owner decides, like, okay, oh, well, sorry, we're not selling it anymore. Right? So many unforeseeable things can be happening that you didn't plan for. Like he said, he didn't know that he was going to be charged taxes, or he didn't know that he should have registered as a 501c3. and this and the other, and saying that so-and-so should have told him, the owner or whatever, the seller of the property, instead of, looking at it from the perspective of, okay, I made that mistake, right? Because when you bring the ball back in your court to take responsibility, that's going to dictate how you maneuver in life, right? And how the chips fall. If you go and you blame everyone for everything that goes wrong in your life, I can tell you right now, you're not going to be a success. And that's the way it's looking. That's the reason why I say that I don't see it getting better unless he changes his perspective. He will have to change his perspective and take a look at himself. And that might be hard to do. Right? That can be hard to do. And you really have, I think he needs to feel it's safe enough to do that. Because it's going to be an ugly look. And what he sees, and take an honest look at himself to see that, okay, I fucked up. Right? And I'm not this invincible person that I thought I was. Even though, of course, he practices Ifa spirituality. But even in African spirituality, I think sometimes this is where we kind of get things hyped up too much. Where we create this dichotomy and looking at ourselves in America, right, in this culture that we have succumbed to here in America as, okay, evil, and as it's everything against the opposite of that, right? And looking at African spirituality as the ideal and it's perfect, and it's connecting us closer to God in a sense that we can claim ourselves as God, and it's not really realistic, and it's not grounded when you think about it. And people are literally walking around here like they are invincible just for the universe to slap them back down and show them like, not true, right? Like, not true. You are just one instrument of the band, of this orchestra, right? But you're thinking that you are the entire orchestra, and life will humble you. I also follow Nature Boy, and he's from New York City, and he, I won't say had a cult, because now the cult has been dismantled. I like his teachings. I like the whole idea of going out in nature. But he had evolved to a point, or shall I say devolved, where he had this perspective of nothing exists outside of oneself, right? And anything that exists outside of oneself only exists because you observe it. Now, on one hand, one can say, oh, okay, that's a unique way of looking at the world, life, reality. But then what can be the problematic way of looking at that? So you have to be able to look at a situation from many different angles. If you only see one angle, then that's where you run into mistakes, like this person here, right, who had nothing but negative to say, right? Two comments back to back. The one about Umar's own incompetence is the cause of his failures. He's been taking the black community for a ride, although he preaches a very good message. Okay, it's something positive. It's undoubtedly the wrong messenger. And then the other person just complete, negativity. And that's only seeing it from one perspective. You have to create a balanced perspective and be able to look at, okay, what's the benefit? What's the drawback? And some people minds don't have that flexibility. It's not malleable in able to be able to do that. And so with going back to Nature Boy, this whole idea of seeing one as a God, seeing themselves as a God, and that everything exists because you exist, in the sense that you're God. If you're so much God, then how is it that somebody can come in and arrest you, right, and take away your freedom that you didn't even see coming? Right? How does that fit into this belief system of your God and nothing else exists outside of you? And then it forces you to be humble, and your perspective then changes, right? Your belief system, then is forced to change. It's like, okay, well, that isn't true. I was just using that to elevate myself, to make myself feel better. To say that, okay, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist without me. Right? That was his belief. That was his philosophy, and he lived by that, He actually began to adopt that more recent. That's not how he started out. And so it can be problematic. I think a lot of people, a lot of leaders, right, people of influence and power fall prey to this. So I think it can happen to anyone if you're not careful. You have to stay humble. You know, when you see that, okay, damn, I'm rising, I get all this power, it feels good, I have all this influence, like you can be brought back down to size. And for some of us, we should be thankful that we don't have that power, because the universe sees, destiny sees that you won't do well with that amount of power. You just won't. You're going to self-destruct. I think that is what's happening with Dr. Umar Johnson, which I mentioned in the previous video. It's unfortunate. Shooting himself in the foot. No one can save him. He can't even save himself. It's going to take a mighty blow from the universe. And that's gonna hurt. That's gonna be painful, right? Imagine the universe knocking you back down, like, damn. And then you have to put things into perspective. And I think he has those moments where he's humble, you know. And sometimes it's worth just taking a break from social media. But yeah, back to that comment. I think for some people, they don't really watch my video, like the entire video, so they jump to conclusions, and I think that happened. This is years ago when I was back in LA and I made a video on what the hell is MGTOW, and all of a sudden my video got raided by all these MGTOW supporters, assuming that I was attacking their philosophy, right, which I call a movement, and they didn't even watch the video to see that that's not what I was doing. But you have to watch the video, so they jump to conclusions and assume that just because I may start off saying, okay, well, I support that Umar Johnson, they think that I'm just like everyone else who supports him, or brainwashed, or a cult. No, I can think for myself. So let's continue, because I want to get to some more comments that were left of people making assumptions. And then there are other people who actually were more calculated in their response and more articulate and more accurate in their comment that they made an observation of me in my video. But that delusional. I think some of these, I think he nails it. Some of these people, a lot of them men, are jealous of him, and we're going to see it too. This other person says, Umar is a joke in the black community. He wouldn't last a day in my neighborhood for scamming his own people. I think that's an empty threat, right? He wouldn't last a day in your neighborhood for scamming people. His lectures are public. His location for his lectures are public. So I feel like if people want to do something, do it, right? To get behind a screen and typing and all that shit, keyboard gangsters, why? You know, it's pointless. If you're going to do something, do it, right? And if you're speaking on behalf of other people in your neighborhood who you view as gangsters and going to do something to somebody, you can't speak for them. Speak for yourself. Somebody says, Umar is just a fake. Alright. Let's read this next comment, which I found to be interesting. I had to read it a few times. I'm like, let's read this. He says, if you actually have a crush on Jermaine, he called him the name that his mom gave him. Umar's name that his father gave him. If you have a crush on Jermaine, you might want to look in the mirror and ask yourself why. Why, like a man who uses the black community's problems for a come up? Why, like a man who doesn't take care nor interact with his kids? Why, like a man who hasn't had a legitimate job in over a decade and main finances are from panhandling on the internet? Why, like a man who has consistently lied about an HVAC? This reminds me of grown women who will mess with a man knowing fully well he has multiple children and doesn't take care of any of them. She gets pregnant, then complains there's no good men. Even with his degrees, it means zero, since he can't use them. I only have a bachelor's degree in information systems security, but I work in my profession, unlike Jermaine. Now, that comment, I think it's respectful. Some of these comments, disrespectful. And I usually delete disrespectful comment, which I think I did delete one, where the person said, essentially, he said, oh, Dr. Umar Johnson is garbage or something like that. And I thought that was that's disrespectful, right? The other person saying that how you delusional females get hooked. That's disrespectful, but I'm going to let that stay. So I think sometimes it's worth just letting people express their ignorance. So they can just be seen for their ignorance. But going back to this comment that I just read by Ralph G, I think it's respectful. Because he is not, I wouldn't say he's attacking. I wouldn't say he's assuming, because he did pose if. He's like, if you actually have a crush on Jermaine, right? He's not saying, oh, you're a dumbass broad, this, that, and the other, right? He said that basically how I presented myself reminds him, right? It brings up a thought of other women who will mess with a man knowing fully well he has multiple children and don't take care of any of them. Now, I think without a rational brain reading this, I could easily get triggered, right? And feel that he is misjudging me. He is making assumptions. He's putting me in a box with other women, right? Like, if I'm not balanced, and when I'm reading this, I could have easily had that knee-jerk reaction. In fact, a small part of me did. Alright, I'm like, hold the fuck up. I was going to block and delete, but then I'm like, no. I think what he's saying holds a lot of weight. It holds a lot of weight. So I had to kind of detach myself from how I felt to look at things from a different perspective. I think that's growth and maturity, which a lot of people just not there yet, right? We have to learn how to do that. It takes discipline, because it's very easy to dismiss a person just because they have a different perspective, or perhaps their perspective is missing you, right? He's just not seeing you quite well, right? So I'm going to break down what he says, right? He said, if you actually have a crush on Jermaine. Well, I do like him. Honestly, I do. I do like Dr. Umar Johnson. I like him on different levels, let's say, right? So my initial attraction to him was the message, right? The mission. And the fact that I resonate. Like, I'm there. I'm like the female version of him in that sense, right? My spirit, it bleeds revolution. You know, like, that's just who I am at my core, as I was saying at the beginning of this video. That's just, it's in me, right? So I identify with anybody else, male or female, who come with that same energy. We just gonna resonate. Like, our spirits gonna connect on that way. And so that's what I see my reflection when I'm watching his live, right? Not to say he's perfect. We already established that and made that clear. And in fact, if people actually watch my entire video, I actually mentioned how he blocked me, right? Which I felt was him acting out of impulse, but he actually blocked me on Facebook regarding this whole, he called it pretending thing, right? He was talking about how black people, you know, be claiming Native American heritage and all of this, and he doesn't like that. And, you know, he's saying that those Negroes, you know, you want to be everything but African, and I had to explain and present my perspective to say that that is absolutely not true. We're talking about a proud African here, right? But at the same time, I think it's worth noting, which I think people kind of glaze over which I'm very thankful that Tariq Nasheed has dedicated a movement to highlighting this sect of people, black people, African people, who were here on this soil, on this land, before slavery, before they brought the slaves, the Africans who they made slaves, enslaved Africans from Africa to this land. We were here, right? There were some of us here, and yes, I'm a descendant of both. My mother's father is Native American, so I had to say that, and he blocked me, but I think, like I said, it was impulse, not even really putting much thought, which that can be dangerous. It can be good, it's protective, but he's acting out of fight-flight response, not thinking. So I think that for me, it's definitely a skill, and I think it's something that, I've been working on, to sit back and consider, to slow down for a second, consider a different perspective other than my own, and to see that, wow, this person is actually bringing something good to the conversation, right? It's not taking away from the conversation, it's actually adding to the conversation, right? Sometimes people like myself, that Umar Johnson, we are confident in who we are, and we feel like, okay, our word is the last word. I said what I said. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I get the final word. Well, no, it shouldn't always be that way. Other people can definitely add to your conversation, and it doesn't take away from what you said. Especially if you believe what you said, and what you said holds weight. So, but yeah, you might want to look in the mirror, he says, and ask yourself why. He says, if I really do have a crush on why? I'll have a crush on him because he is my reflection. Apart from the flaws, I see the flaws, but I don't see the flaws in a way that you guys see the flaws, right? I see him differently. So yes, it matters which lens you're looking through. What is your perspective of a person or of a thing, right? It's going to determine how you relate to that thing or that person. And so I don't see his flaws the way you guys see his flaws. I see his flaws. I see the same thing y'all see, but it's filtered through a different lens, in a sense, right? The way I interpret it is different, right? You guys interpret these flaws as, okay, he's doing this on purpose. He set out to do this on purpose. That was his intention when he first started. That's how y'all see it, right? I don't see it that way. I see it that, yes, he's making mistakes. He's made mistakes. When it comes to the, decision making and planning and communication with the black community, especially with people who have donated, his, presentation and how he's responded to certain things, questions that people have asked, whether they donated or not, yes, how he represents the black community. Yeah, just, yeah, not in the best interest of himself and the black community, I think that there is hope. So I think for y'all look at him like, okay, he's just a lost cause. Y'all write him off. I don't look at him through that lens. So I think that there's always redemption power in anything. So that's just how I see it. But yeah, I like him a lot. Like I said, it started out with just, me gravitating to the mission and standing by what, he set out to do. Because, of course, I don't think y'all quite know me that well, but I have a similar calling. I don't talk about it, right? I think it's better to just walk the talk as opposed to just going out preaching it and talking it. But we resonate on that level. I resonate with him on that level. And then, yeah, for me as a sapiosexual, I've said this before, and what I look for in a man and what attracts me. Yes, I think, yeah, it goes without saying that any woman who is pro-black, pan-African, who is conscious, like certain types of people are gonna, tickle your fancy, right? You're gonna be turned on by in that way. So yes, I have that degree of self-awareness. Doesn't mean I'm going to act on it, right? So going into what he's saying next, he's like, okay, why like a man who uses the black community's problems for it come up? So these people have already painted him out to be like garbage as the other person who commented, and I end up deleting that. They've already kind of thrown him away, right? They're already like, he's a lost cause, right? He's scamming, ain't no hope, you can't look at it like, okay, well maybe, he gonna get it together and pull it together. They've already wrote him off, like, nope, right? Like he says, why like a man who doesn't take care or interact with his kids, and let's keep going. Why like a man who hasn't had a legitimate job in over a decade and main finances are from panhandling on the internet, while like a man who has consistently lied about an HVAC. Then he said, this reminds me of women who will mess with a man knowing fully well he has multiple children and doesn't take care of any of them. Okay, it reminds you of that. Don't mean that that's me. Okay, clearly that's not me. I'm 38 years old. I'll be 39 this year, gracefully. And that should be enough said right there. I don't have any children. I haven't had the privilege of holding a child in my womb and birthing a child. I want that, but it goes to show that I'm calculated. So a woman can have a crush on whoever the hell she want to have a crush on. Don't mean she gonna act on that crush, and don't mean that it's gonna come that easy, right? Like, I'm very selective in who I lay down with. I'm very selective in who I fall for, so to speak. So yes, I may get on here and express my public admiration of Dr. Umar Johnson, and I may get on here and say, oh, I had a dream about Dr. Umar Johnson. No. Like, come on. Right? Don't get shit mistaken. That's where people get shit mistaken. And it happens, even guys that I've dated, they've gotten it mistaken. They assume, like, okay, just because they can get a phone conversation with me or even a date in person. I dated this fake Black Panther, as I call it. Right? Comes off, we met on the train here in New York City and presented very well, looking all nice in the Black Panther attire and all of this. But don't mean you got me, right? Like, I'm very sensitive. It goes without saying. This video isn't really so much about me. I'm just addressing comments. But if you really pay close attention, you'll see, like, I'm very meticulous. I'm very particular about certain things. And of course I have standards, and like I say, I'm his reflection. So what you see in his personality, like, I have a very similar kind of demeanor. So it kind of goes without saying, like, it should go without saying, I'm very sophisticated, I'm very intelligent, I'm very wise. And, nobody can woo me, right? If I fall for a person, it's because I choose to and I want to, right? Like, love is a choice, is a commitment. It's because I've made a conscious decision, well thought out, well calculated. And because, a person swindled me or this, that, and the other, nah. Like the other person said, how delusional females get hooked. Nah, ain't no hooking going on over here. That ain't how things go. But yeah, I get it. I see what he's saying. Like, some women do, I guess, fall in a trap, and I don't know. Maybe they don't think things out thoroughly. But it should be clear, I'm different. I'm a different breed. You just have to witness me and be in front of me, interact with me in the real flesh to see. It ain't nothing come easy over here. Go down like that. In fact, I'm a challenge, and I think that, honestly, it would be interesting for me and Dr. Umar Johnson to have an interaction, but I don't think he wouldn't be able to stand it. And I think I probably wouldn't be able to stand him either. That's another thing. So I'm going to leave that at that. But yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, that women, end up pregnant, and that's their story. But that's clearly not mine. That's not my story. I come off guarded. Like, from the jump. And it's just not even intentional. It's just naturally. Like, you know, I put men through hoops, yo. And I like to challenge. This is just my personality. Like, I challenge people. It ain't even just men. It's just how I am. I challenge people. It's like you put a person, you vet a person, you put them do so much to the point where they just like, damn. It's like they find me difficult sometimes. Like, damn, like, why are you so hard to relate to? Like, I can be that. I'm always analyzing. I'm always studying. Like, I'm critical. You know, have that critical eye. So, though, yes, I can get on here on camera and I can be all mushy and, Umar Johnson. Like, don't get it mistaken. Do not get it mistaken. Now, the last part, I find interesting this last statement that he says, even with his degrees, it means zero since he can't use them. Like, I see where Dr. Umar Johnson is saying that these are beta males and they're jealous. Because I'm putting myself in that Umar Johnson shoes. And like, imagine myself as a man. And you got men. What is it? Like, why even... I think he would have been good just leaving it at that. Because what he was saying from the part about, okay, where you started, if you have a crush on Jermaine, ask yourself this, take a look at yourself in the mirror. It sounded more like he was speaking as a preacher or as like a big brother kind of figure, right? That's the flavor I got. Like, you know, just take a look at yourself. He didn't call me out my name or nothing like that. He wasn't disrespectful. He was just like, here's a mirror, take a look at yourself and ask yourself, like, you know, why would you be attracted to this kind of man who has, you know, these character flaws? And then he says that it reminds me of, you know, women who end up as single, you know, parents, single baby mamas, and they want to say, oh, niggas ain't shit and all of that, right? That's what he kind of reminds, like a big brother, like, come on, like, don't end up down that path. Like, don't make this mistake, kind of like as a protective. That's how I take it, like, trying to protect, you know what I'm saying, a good woman from falling in a man's trap, right? A man who he perceived as not good. So that's how I saw it up until that point. But then he goes and says, even with his degrees, it means zero since he can't use them. Why are you on his degrees? How can he not use his... He's using his degree. He's in his field. He goes on to say, I only have a bachelor's degree, so he's already feeling a certain kind of way, right? If you're saying you only have a bachelor's degree, and we know that Dr. Umar Johnson has multiple degrees, right? He has a PhD, you know, and multiple master's degrees. It's like, but he's putting himself kind of beneath Umar. That's how he sees himself. I only have a bachelor's degree in information system security, but I work in my profession. Comparing himself to Dr. Umar, unlike Jermaine, not even giving the man credit for his degree. But you have to really earn degrees, right? Higher than a bachelor's degree, higher even than a master's. You have to earn a doctorate degree to really respect it. Nobody's not going to put in all them hours of school, of writing papers, of sitting in a goddamn chair, desk, learning, taking tests, presentations, all of this rigor to not respect it. Not even mention the money, the cost, and the time. No one is not going to put in that many hours and that much work and that much time and that much money and energy to earning a doctorate degree and not have respect for another fellow person who has it. You have to go through it. And that's like anything in life. If you ain't been through it, you ain't gonna respect it, right? So I get this a lot as a degree holder, right? Multiple degrees, actually. I have, how many master's degrees? I got 2 masters, 1 PhD and a bachelor's. I get this of people feeling a certain kind of way because I have degrees. I don't mention my degrees like that, but they bring it into the conversation. And so now we're talking about my degrees, and they talking about it as if like it's jealousy, like you're speaking down on my credentials. And you can tell it's just like, what is this about? A black person is damn if they do it, damn if they don't. If I don't go to school, now if I was a bum, I get bashed. Now I earned the highest degree in my field, and people still disrespecting it. It's just like, well, goddamn. What is fucking black people makes you wonder, what is y'all fucking problem? The fuck is wrong with you? Just respect the man for what he earned, but you're comparing yourself to him and putting yourself beneath him in a sense. You already see yourself as beneath him. And so you try to pull him down and make him feel less than because you don't have a doctorate degree. And so now he's just Jermaine, not respecting the degree that he's earned. But you got to earn it to really respect it, to go through it to really respect it, which you haven't done. Yeah, people have no idea. The hell, especially being a black person, you have to go through to earn a doctorate degree. It's hard work, to say the least. Why they hating on a man like that? That I think it's part hate. You know, like I said, a good portion of it was speaking truth, right? Because it's just to reflect back to a woman, her self-worth, right? And to see how she could fall error or victim to making poor decisions, right? You know, having these rose-colored glasses on. Clearly, I'm not that, though. Y'all don't get it twisted, okay? I have some good, deep spiritual eyes here. It should be clear. Don't get it twisted. I see through a lot. So let's keep going. This next comment was left by a person with the name, the Prince of Scam Africa. Said, sister, get this clown out of your mind. You can't believe anything he says. He is a king of fuckery. Alright, and the last comment I want to read here says, beautiful lady. I don't know if this is left by a man or a woman. Their name is Dominique Umar. I'm thinking a woman, a sister, but I don't know. But anyway, the comment reads, beautiful lady, I came across these Umar and conscious woke videos by accident, and I'm amazed and entertained. You didn't come by it by accident. Nothing happens by accident, baby. Let me tell you something. Anything that they feed into your timeline is based on the algorithm. And how do they calculate this algorithm? Where do they get it from? Based on videos that you have watched. They feed you similar videos. They know you. They can feed you some content in your timeline of some shit that you haven't even watched using your phone, but you thinking about. I don't know if y'all notice that, or maybe you are doing. Yo, I kid you fucking not. Where the hell was I? I think I was in Manhattan, and I'm walking down the street. I'm approaching this freaking gym, a very specific type of gym with a specific name. I'm walking towards the gym. I wasn't going to the gym. I'm just on the same street walking in that direction. And do you know, I look at my phone and I get an ad for the motherfucking gym that I'm approaching. I'm like literally probably 20 feet away from the... I'm like, how in the fuck? But it's the algorithm. If they got Google Maps, right, and they know where your ass is at in respect to certain landmarks in your vicinity or wherever your ass is at, they know where you at. They know what's in your vicinity without you even telling them. And so that's how they know that I was approaching that goddamn gym. And they're gonna put that shit in my damn time. I open my phone, I'm talking about 20, I'm walking about 20 feet. The gym is right there across the street. I wasn't even going to the gym though, but the gym is there. And I'm looking at I'm like, I look at my phone, I'm like, what, these motherfuckers watching me, how the hell they know? I'll give you another example. I'm sitting on the motherfucking toilet taking a shit. And I'm looking at my goddamn phone. I open my phone. And it's a post about motherfucking toilet paper. I'm like, how the fuck they know I'm taking a shit? That's no coincidence. So, I just say that to say they're feeding you the content that they know your ass like, that you're more likely to click on. They want you to click on things that you're going to watch. So, all these people say, oh, I don't know how I got here. I get that a lot. I don't know how I got. Oh, you should know how you got here. You know, I don't know how I landed, but I somehow landed here. I don't know how I got pregnant. I just somehow. Alright, anyway. Alright. I came across these Umar and Conscious woke videos by accident. Ain't nothing happen by accident, baby. Nothing happens by accident. And I'm amazed. And then even, let's say you did. Somehow, boom, it's in your fucking feed and you don't know how it got there. But you clicked on it. People not gonna click on shit you're not interested in. Know thyself. Come on, sweetheart. I don't click on shit I'm not interested in. Okay? You just don't. For what? We only got but so many hours in a day. And 8 of those hours your ass should be asleep. How the hell is you here if it's not interesting to you? But then she goes and says, and I'm amazed and entertained by them. But you clicked on the back. You came upon it by accident, but somehow it amazes you. No. It amazes you, and you watching it because it amazes you. That's the reason why it ain't by accident. Alright? I just like motherfuckers that be sending me messages in response to my videos I make on alternative sexual lifestyles and cuckolding. Oh, I just don't know. I just on porn sites and I'm somehow stumbled across this. I just don't know. Do you know yourself? Or do you know yourself? Anyway, I'm definitely a pro-black female. Okay, she tells us. I'm a pro-black female who love all of my black people. But I'm not a part of nor interested in this conscious woke movement. Nobody asked you to be. What I have found is that in this community, there are extremists, Umar and his followers, to the point where it is negatively affecting them. Possibly. There's a such thing, right? That you could be following people who set out with good intentions, right? And then they lead your ass into a burning bush. And you like, oh my gosh, how the fuck did I get here, right? So for me, and when I say that I'm his reflection, I'm not saying this because I'm a follower. I've never been a follower. That is not in my DNA. I stand and walk alone. Have you guys noticed? Do you see anybody in this motherfucker? When I'm doing videos, do y'all see? I don't follow a crowd. That's just who I am, right? I'm independent and I'm a leader by nature. It's just something that happens naturally, okay? So I think it's kind of weird, and sometimes it annoys me when somehow people assume that just because, let's say, I'm commenting on Dr. Umar Johnson's content, right? And I say I resonate with certain things that, I'm a follower and I'm a cult. I'm a part of a cult. But I do see the flip side too, because shit like that do go down. And a lot of cliques, right, become kind of cultish. And before you know it, you lose a sense of identity and who you are because you get sucked up into it, right? And I saw it happening, right? Like, I'm a psychologist. I'm an observer. I'm constantly observing and analyzing, right? So I have the ability to have the right, just like you guys, whatever you want to be entertained by and watch. And yes, I do. When I say I follow meaning I observe, right? I observe carbonation with Nature Boy and his cult. And I've been watching it for a few years now and seeing the evolution and seeing how, yes, he set out with a good intention, as I said before, right? And the people that joined him set out with that same intention. You know, the idea of living out in nature and living just, from the earth, like, that's a good thing, right? Especially with the rationale behind it, the scientific rationale behind it, with grounding, and having direct access to the sun, living in the tropic, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, right? It's set out with good intentions. But then, yes, you get caught up so much to the extent where you're not even aware that it is becoming cultish, right? It's becoming that everyone has to have the same mind and can't have their own mind. Research even shows that good decision making within organizations happens when there is heterogeneity, right? Where people are able to be heterogeneous in their thinking and not have this groupthink idea where everyone has to see things from the same perspective. That's not healthy. I think that everyone should be aligned, but everyone should come with their own unique talents, gifts, ideas, and perspective. And it should be considered and respected. And that's how growth happens. I think it can be scary to kind of go with that, right? For some leaders, because they're afraid of a person infiltrating or attacking, right? So they think that, okay, we're all one mind, one self, right? And we're all dressed alike and we're talking alike, then we can be able to identify the enemy. Clearly, it will stand out because this person doesn't think like us, talk like us, dress like us, right? That's the idea, I think, behind when leaders want to create like this uniformity in their mission, in their organization, with the people that are aligned with their mission. But there's an error. There's pros and cons to everything, and there's an error in that approach. And that's clearly can be very dangerous in taking that approach. So yes, I get why people say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of that because that doesn't represent me, and it actually makes me look bad, so to speak. So people kind of create this distinction between themselves and these movements, as she calls them, right? And I've heard this before where people say, you know what, like, no, I'm not a part of the conscious community or the black community. I don't want to be a part because it has like negative connotations and a negative reputation, and just these negative, ideas and images attached to it, where people, they don't want any part of that, and I can see that. All right, let's keep going. But I do think, we need to somehow, there should be some kind of commonality, something that brings us together. I think that happens naturally without saying. I think that our intention, moving with effort to, moving with mindfulness to unite, sometimes it can be an oxymoron, because the more we try to come together in an effort, right, to unite against white supremacy, it's like the more problematic things go, right? It's almost as if, and I've said this before, this is another way of looking at it, that we don't really need to unite, that unity amongst a species, right, happens naturally. Like, nature is nature, and we're human beings and we are nature. What's designed to happen and how we are made is going to happen. Nothing outside of that really needs to happen, because it's going to happen anyway, right? That's for another video, and talking about This whole idea of we need to unite and we need to do this and all these missions that are arising out of that, when in fact it's going to happen by itself. There's no other way for me to explain it, right? It's already happening. Like, we have this idea that we need to ascertain to a certain place and time, right? Or a certain vision that needs to be fulfilled, when in fact who we are and what we are is just perfect where we are. You know, that's another level of thinking though, right? It's like there's this game that has been launched, this system that has been created, this ideal, this belief that racism exists, right? And it does, right? But there's another way of looking at it in a more spiritual sense, right? Like, sometimes if you buy into this idea and you're playing things by a certain game, the way it's set up, you're going to lose anyway. This is more philosophical thinking, right? So like I said, there's many different ways to look at a thing. It's not to be negligent to reality of what has been created in the context in which we live in, that, yeah, systems exist. There are systems like racism that has been created. It's a reality. The system is a perspective. It's a reality. But even outside of that reality are other realities in which we create in our mind's eye. Right? So you can play it by that reality or that system, or create your own reality and way of looking at a thing. Right? So when we are born into this reality of racism, right, it's like a code has been planted in us, and then you play out this code, you operate out of this code within a certain timeline that you're living in. And you can be placed back to a certain timeline where you're stuck in believing that you are enslaved and you're subjugated to the system of white supremacy. You don't have to play by that system though. But that's for another video. But anyway, what I have found, let's going back to the same comment, the last comment that I'm reading. What I have found is that in this community there are extremists, Umar and his followers, to the point where it is negatively affecting them. To believe that you can only live off black dollars is idealistic and practical way of thinking. No one lives on an island with one race. You are the first person, particularly a black female, who seems to be his most targeted and vulnerable audience, who had made rational comments about his behavior and approaches, both positive and negative. Thank you. Yes, and that's the last comment I'm going to read. But I did it on purpose, with intention. And I can be rational, as she says, or balanced in my perspective. And I can be delusional at the same time if I choose to be, right? And get on here and be like, oh my gosh, I love me some Dr. Umar Johnson. What if I was Dr. Umar Johnson's wife? In fact, I've done that. I've done that intentionally with the goal to, as I've said before, distract. And it worked, right? Because at that time, it wasn't so much I had a crush on him. It was the fact that I felt bad for him, right? And I did kind of want to diffuse some of that negative energy that was being thrown at him and absorb it myself, right? So that's love. That's love right there. And I did absorb it. It was painful though. It was painful. I was like, shit. Ouch. Because I started getting attacked, right? People weren't attacking him. They were attacking me. And they actually were coming to his defense. So it's just alchemizing energy, which I find interesting. Interesting to do. considering I live in the spirit realm, right? And I think and act and exist in a spiritual realm. So what you guys are experiencing on a certain level or timeline, seeing it through one lens and one perspective, my mind is somewhere else, right? So it can be created as a show to kind of sit back and watch and reflect on, like, interesting. But I'm going to just say that to say this. Guys, think critically and stop believing what you see at first glance, right? I know that's how a lot of people's mind works, where they don't stop to analyze. And then they may watch one video and go with it and like, oh, okay. And that's just how they make assumptions and interpretations about a person off of one video, which people do that way too often. Not really getting to know a person and who they are. But on that note, you guys feel free to share your comments below. When I made that video, I think I came back, I'm sure I did, and told you guys that it's fun. Some things are just fun to do. And I made that, it was fun for me when I made the video about, oh, could I be Dr. Umar Johnson's wife? And people were like, oh, she's crazy, and this and the other. And fuck around. And the universe decides, right? But, like I said, from the comment that was made earlier and what I said about, you know, how I'm very selective in who I share my energy with, right? And yeah, how people present, some things are just not my cup of tea, you know? Like, I do like him as, for what he stands for, you know, as a political leader and what he set out to accomplish, even though, you know, he has a lot of bumps in the road. But yeah, like, everyone has their flaws, and his flaws, yes, even though, like I said, I see his flaws differently. I see them differently in the sense where, yes, I can continue to support him, and that's not going to change, right? But at the same time, the spirit and the person who I am, could I date those flaws? No, I don't think so. Because we all have certain needs, right? Knowing who I am, like, I should know who I am, right? And I should know what I want and what resonates with me on that level of intimacy with a man. He wouldn't be able to provide what I need. And how he relates to women, I don't think has matured to the extent where he's able to relate to a woman outside of looking at her as an object. So that's problematic for me. Like, my ideal partner would be able to relate to me as a spiritual being, such as he is a spiritual being. As a person, right? And respectfully, as a goddess. And so that's an energy, right? And he doesn't emit that kind of energy to me, right? Like, he comes off as more so, and it's not even just comes off, but he's definitely articulated this, that it's about what a woman can do for him. How can she meet his needs, right? And a lot of those needs, I think, are sexual for him. And more so working, you know, for the school and this, that, and the other. It's just like, okay, I don't see how he would fulfill any of my needs, you know. So how would that work on an intimate level? It wouldn't. And that's the same thing I say for a lot of guys who just don't know how to show up and relate to a woman in a way that can fulfill her needs, right? Such that she also is able to fulfill his needs, and it works and it fits together like a glove. It's just, I don't see that. But I do find it funny, though, when he was doing his last fundraiser for the shockumentary, and he was talking about sex. I found this shit so funny how he was like he wouldn't fuck in with the air conditioner on. This shit was so random. He was like, I will not fuck with the air conditioner on. In fact, I'll turn it off so that we both can sweat together. That shit was funny to me, but he painted this image and I felt that. I was like, damn. But you got men that talk that good talk about, oh, how they gonna lay it down, and then and the time comes and it ain't laying shit. But I don't know. But yeah, there comes a point where it's just like, you know, a woman requires something deeper than sex. Sex is great, but it has to go deeper than that. It has to be a real connection. And I don't like how he has these slogans about, oh, consciousness over cookies and revolutionary over romance and all these bullshit, right? Because I look at it as more of an objectification of women, right? And seeing that a woman, what she brings is nothing greater than what's between her legs. And actually creating this dichotomy between the mission, the revolution, and romance. And I feel like that is missing a big piece, to not consider that romance is actually part of the revolution. But for him to cut that off, it goes to show a lot about really what his mission is and really who he is. And I think that it kind of slips out, like if you're going to portray this image of community, black family, but he's not really quite about that, right? You can preach that, but you have to live it. And how are you about black family when you haven't married any of your baby mamas, and you don't even have the intention really to marry, to commit to a woman in that way, right? And not even seeing and valuing that the romantic relationship, the union between a black man and a black woman is revolutionary in and of itself, right? So in his mind, the mission and the revolution is in institutions apart from marriage. And it's like, no, that's part of it, right? So I've said this before, so that's my take on that. And I think it starts there. And until a black man crosses my path who understands and really truly grasps and lives this reality that romance is revolution. You can't have revolution in the black community without romance. And when I say romance, I'm not talking about fucking, but for him to look at it as that, like I said, that's where the objectification comes in, right? It's just like, okay, that's what you see the black woman as. So, of course, he is very well known and popular, and he has many opportunities to, you know, unite and procreate and join union with a black woman, but he chooses not to. Right? Don't mean he not fucking. He just, you know, commitment, I think, is different, and for a lot of people, commitment is scary. And I think, you know, for a person to be successful in business, right, and we're talking about building institutions, that's longevity, right? It takes a degree of commitment, stability, right, within one's own personal life, and he hasn't really demonstrated that. So that's just my take on that. Not to say that he's incapable. He could be. It just takes discipline and consistency, right? And he's kind of like just all over the place. And working to his own personal advantage. Though, yes, he pours out knowledge, you know, and motivates and educates, you know, parents, you know, that's helpful, but it's still feeding his pockets, right? So I think it's a step up that he can move to when it comes to real systemic revolutionary change that can happen. So, yeah, that's my take. I've said enough, so you guys feel free to share your comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you guys.